Hey Bewitchlings, Tiffany here on Bewitching.Bemused if you don't already know me. Today we're going to talk about a topic that gets brought up in my emails a lot. I am very frequently asked, why do you hate this? Why do you dislike that? And it's things that, for the most part, I wouldn't say I objectively hate across the board. In fact, there's very few things in this world that I just objectively hate across the board. Like, yes, I can safely say, child molesters. I hate all child molesters. That's an easy one, but there's lots of things in this world that my feelings about them are a lot more nuanced than that. The first one is going to be witch talk. Now, yeah, I'm not a fan of witch talk. You will never find me on there as a content creator. And I'm really not judging people for putting content on witch talk or for people, well, for the most part. And I'm really not judging people for watching stuff on witch talk. I just don't think that it should be people's only resource when it comes to learning about paganism, witchcraft, magic, chaos magic, the occult, spirituality. You can find educational stuff on there. I'm not saying that you can't. Obviously, I am a proponent of long-form content when it comes to education. And the reason for that is because when you do long-form versus short-form, especially when you're looking at, some of my videos are 20 minutes, 30 minutes, whereas TikTok is, I don't even honestly know what let me look it up. How long can a TikTok video be? Okay, so it looks like they max out at 3 minutes, but they are starting to roll out 10-minute videos across the platform. So that is a little bit of an improvement, but as TikTok stands, or Witch Talk stands right now, my issue with getting all of your education from a short form platform is it doesn't give enough time to thoroughly explain things, to talk about where things come from, to provide alternatives, to talk about the reasons behind things, to provide resources and additional reading. It's just not there. A lot of the times what you find on Witch Talk are these really quick, here's this short little spell. However, it doesn't explain why you're doing simple steps in that spell. What is the purpose of, folding a piece of paper towards you versus folding it away from you? Inward is because you're manifesting, you're bringing things into you, whereas outward you are banishing, you are pushing it away from you. You don't want it near you, right? Just simple things like that to explain to people in a step-by-step process of why you are doing the things that you're doing. I'm not saying that when you do a spell and you don't know what every little thing, the purpose of every little thing is for, that it won't work. I mean, that has happened, I'm sure, for plenty of people. It's happened for me before, early into my witchcraft days. But if you actually want to devote yourself to this path and to this journey, you need to devote yourself to learning about it. And of course, there's nothing wrong with just being a dabbler and not really wanting to invest into the education, but also that's really going to hamper your results and the longevity of your practice. And also finding deeper meaning in your practice. And it doesn't just go for spells. This also goes for explaining the history of certain things, the history of the Sabbats, or the history behind a certain ingredient. For example, if you really want to learn about the runes, yes, you can go online and find a one-sentence explanation of what a certain rune means. But you're not going to fully understand that rune. You're not going to fully be able to interpret a reading with just one-sentence explanations for every rune. You need to truly study them and understand where they sit in the Icelandic rune poems, the other rune poems, their appearance. There's a lot behind understanding the runes. Even my rune series here is not a full in-depth explanation. There is so much more out there to learn about them. And each of my individual videos on the runes go anywhere from 7 minutes to, I think my longest one was 15 minutes. Now condense that down into a 3-minute video and you're losing a lot of really good educational material. Then of course, when it comes to witch talk, you get certain trends on there that are just straight up cringeworthy, like cursing the moon. And a lot of people got very scared because the moon was cursed. I think a recent one I saw, there was a screenshot of it on Reddit. And it was that Athena has been cursed and imprisoned. Yeah, no. And a big problem with it is that TikTok itself as a platform tends to get a lot of much younger, more impressionable viewers and audiences. And on top of it, because they're young, they're usually newer to the craft. And if this is their only exposure, or it's a major part of their exposure to the education of witchcraft, paganism, the occult, etc., then they are really getting a pretty poor education. Again, it's fine if they're also studying other things from other resources, reading books, watching long form content, watching my content, just kidding, listening to podcasts, they're getting more of an education elsewhere and they're dabbling on witch talk. Hey, that's fine, especially if they're learning to differentiate between what's bullshit and what's legit. Or if people are using it as a platform to, use short form content to find something that might pique their interest, and then take that topic and go online or go to the library or to the bookstore and research it some more. I think that's great. I don't have an issue with that. And that's why I can't say that I hate witch talk as a whole or in general. I think it's fine, I guess. It's just, there are problems with it. And also, just to be clear, every social media platform and every place you can get information on the internet is problematic. Like, none of them are perfect. And I've seen a lot of garbage information just right here on YouTube. So I'm not saying that, witch talkers are the only ones that are claiming to curse the moon. Like, I've seen some really weird stuff on here. But I'm just saying that for multiple reasons, that is why you will never find me on TikTok, witch talk, as a content creator or as a viewer. It's just not gonna happen. So yeah, that one I would say I generally dislike, but I'm not judging people for being on there. I would just say don't make it your only source of information. The next one is Wicca. Do I dislike Wicca? No, absolutely not. I think Wicca is actually a really interesting path to follow. I started off with Wicca in the very beginning of my practice, and it's also the area that I mostly dabbled in before I really committed to witchcraft and to the pagan path when I was much, much, much younger. Wicca itself, I do not have an issue with at all. It's just not for me. There's a big difference between those two. Just because something doesn't fit you doesn't necessarily mean that you don't like it or you condemn it. Let's just be very clear about that. Yeah, I understand that the history of Wicca, the founder of Wicca is Gerald Gardner, and if you know anything about him, you know that he was a little bit of a liar. But again, I wouldn't say that that completely invalidates Wicca and what Wicca has become today. Same with the fact that it's a new religion. Just because Wicca was created in the 50s, well, let's be honest here, it did have a lot of stuff based on ancient pagan practices, not entirely. And some of the information, the way that Gerald Gardner said he got that information was not true, but some of it is pretty valid based on what we know historically. And also, piecing together the puzzle of the ancient pagans is very arduous, and there are gaps, and there are missing puzzle pieces, and there are mystery puzzle pieces, and it's very hard to do recreating any kind of religion or spiritual practice in the present day from things that were not only very, very old and disappeared slowly over time, but were also demonized. So texts and things like that did hang around quite often were destroyed. This is a thing we don't really need to go into today, but I would not say that it being a new religion or the fact that its founder was, it invalidates Wicca as a whole. The only thing that I would add into this topic of saying like whether or not I dislike Wicca, which again, to be clear, I do not dislike Wicca, it's just not for me. Certain people involved in Wicca or certain groups or covens have shown themselves to be homophobic, transphobic, and or misandrists. And but this is layered. It's, first of all, there's definitely a difference between, saying we would like a female only coven or a female only group, and saying we don't want men in our group because we hate them. There's a big difference. So I'm not trying to be, exaggerate here when I say things like misandrous. When I was a young witchling, I wasn't that young, when I was towards the beginning of my craft, but I felt kind of ready to start finding a group or a coven to work with, I did look into some Wiccan covens because I wasn't finding any sort of eclectic pagan groups or general practitioner groups or anything like that. So I thought, well, maybe I'll try Wicca as long as it's okay that I'm we'll see. Maybe if it's just a discussion group versus an actual coven where I need to be initiated, let me just check this out. But I found a few, not all of them, but I found a few Wiccan covens and a few Wiccan groups that were like, we only accept women who were born women, period. And who currently identify as women, period. And I was just like, yeah, that's transphobic. There have been Wiccan spokespeople. I don't want to say that they're actually spokespeople because they've just kind of put themselves out there as a leader, even though they're not. Like, nobody's elected them as like a leader of Wicca, but have spoken out with very transphobic things, very misandrist things, and I don't like that. But here's the thing. First of all, that's not all of Wicca. That is not every Wiccan leader. That is not every Wiccan coven or Wiccan group or Wiccan sect. And also, that's not limited to Wicca, unfortunately. That you'll find in a lot of different religions, faiths, spiritualities, practices, magical practices. You're gonna find those groups that are just, they want to exclude people, and they will just make it a rule in their group for whatever reason. But at the end of the day, to sum this section up, I would just say I don't dislike Wicca. I dislike certain things in Wicca, just like I dislike certain things in a lot of other traditions and paths. Wicca's just not for me. I also dislike, and I wouldn't necessarily blame this on Wicca itself, but I dislike that there's a lot of people who think that Wiccan rules are pagan rules, or Wiccan rules are witchcraft rules, and they're not, because those are three completely different things. So I'll see something in a general witchcraft subreddit or Facebook group or something. I think that's a Wicca rule, though. This is a general witchcraft page. So unless this person stated that they're Wicca, and they stated or Wiccan, and they stated that that's something that they believe in, because also not all Wiccans follow the Wiccan Rede. They just don't. Some people don't. Same with the rule of threes, and I'm sorry, like some of this, I'm trying to remember all of the different rules and terminologies because it's been a long time since I've studied Wicca, and I only studied it very briefly, so I apologize if I'm mixing certain things up. But it is different. You have Alexandrian Wiccans, and you have Dianic Wiccans, and you have traditional Wiccans, and oh gosh, I know there's like so many more. But see, even Wicca itself in general, you also have those general Wiccans and the solitary practitioners. So even Wicca itself is broken up into different paths and different sects. So, to generalize all of that, to say like, I don't like it, is untrue. But also to assume that rules that Gerald Gardner came up with, or I'm sorry, I don't actually even know if he's the one who wrote those rules. So I apologize if I'm speaking out of turn on quoting him as the creator of that. But whoever it was that came up with the general Wicca rules, to apply those to everybody who practices magic is very, very misinformed. And that's not an issue with Wicca. That's just, I think that happened because Wicca really kicked off the neo-pagan movement in the 1950s. And so a lot of people don't understand what general paganism is or what neo-paganism is. They've just heard the term Wicca, especially because Wicca is often used in contemporary media. So even, this isn't contemporary, I'm aging myself here, but in Buffy, they talk about Wicca. In Charmed, they talk about Wicca. I don't know about the current Charmed. I don't watch it. I wasn't a fan of it. But a lot of the time when you talk about witches in a non horror aspect, or even sometimes even in a horror aspect, it's Wicca is what is referenced. Not paganism. Often in media, paganism is referenced when it's evil witchcraft, right? I'll take it. It's not true, but I'll take it. I feel that the fact that a lot of people, Wiccan or not, assume that witches in general, or pagans in general, magical practitioners in general, should be following these Wiccan rules. They just don't know that, okay, those rules are specifically Wiccan. And not all magic is Wiccan. Not all witches are Wiccan. And it just comes down to a lack of knowledge about that. It's just ignorance, you know, and I don't mean that as an insult. We all start off ignorant. It's just a matter of time and learning, right? I mean, I'm sure in some cases it does come from a place of this is my belief, so I need to shove it down your throat. But I think for the most part, in most cases, that is not what those people are trying to do. They're just misinformed. And that is also a problem because most beginner books, what are they? They're Wiccan. All right, let's move on. My next one is, do I dislike professional spellcasters? Nope. I do hate professional scam artists, though. Okay, I know that one thing that is kind of problematic in general in society today is this belief that you have to have a side hustle. If you're good at something, you need to monetize it. If you enjoy something and you do it a lot, you have to make money from it. Now, I'm totally guilty of that. I love witchcraft. I love teaching about witchcraft. So here I am monetizing it. I don't sell spells. I don't sell readings, but I'm online talking about it, teaching about it. I sell journals for it. I sell printable, divination pages and printable Book of Shadows pages. But I do think there is absolutely nothing wrong with having something that you just do because you enjoy it. You just like doing it. Not everything has to be monetized. I think that's a really unhealthy mindset. There's lots of things that I love and I do a lot of, but I don't do for money. Like, I love gaming. I game a lot, but I'm not a Twitch streamer. I just don't feel a need to be. But I don't think there is anything necessarily wrong with being good at something, being a good spellcaster, getting good results, being a powerful witch, and making money off of that. It's a service, supply and demand. As long as people are being upfront and clear with, hey, I cannot guarantee you results, well, you know what? If they like doing spells for other people, there's always people out there who want spells done for them. But you know what? Casting spells takes energy. It takes time. Buying ingredients takes money. And if people want to turn a little bit of a profit, I don't see a problem with that. I know there's a lot of people out there who have this belief that your magic is spiritual and it needs to be private or with a coven. It shouldn't be monetized and sold. First of all, not everybody's magic is spiritual, just like not everybody's spirituality is turned into magic, not turned into magic, but not everybody's spirituality, even within paganism, revolves around performing witchcraft. Some people's version of paganism has absolutely nothing to do with witchcraft. Witchcraft is secular, but it is often incorporated into certain religious or spiritual beliefs. But I would say even if somebody does practice witchcraft as a part of their spirituality and they want to use their witchcraft to make money, again, I don't really have an issue with that as long as they're not being shady. I do, however, have an issue with the fact that there are a ton of scam artists haunting our communities. I see them in the comment sections of my videos all the time. And I cannot tell you how annoying it is to have to constantly go in, and they usually leave like 3 comments. And so the first one I gotta mark as spam, and then the second one I hide user from page, and the third one I report it as spam or I just delete it. And that's, I just think that, first of all, if you are going to go out and seek somebody out to cast a spell for you in exchange for money, I think that, first of all, if somebody comes to you, especially saying I had a psychic vision or whatever, I had a dream about you, don't believe it. Do not believe it. If they sought you out, they are most likely not legit. I don't care if they try to say, I had this vision and you were rich and famous and you were, I don't know, a deity reborn into a mortal body. Like, it's not true. I know it sounds cool and it would be amazing if that were true, but it's not. I don't care if they said that ex you're still in love with is coming back into your life. No, sweetie. Also, I highly recommend that you seek out somebody whose work you are somewhat familiar with. For instance, Jason Miller. I adore Jason Miller. You guys probably know this about me already. Anyway, he is an occult author. He is an occult teacher. He sells classes and workshops online. And yes, he also, I don't know if he still does, but at least at one point in time, he sold spellcasting services. He is somebody that I would trust because I would go, I know who you are. I can literally see your picture on the internet. You obviously know what you're doing. You are educated. You are experienced and practiced in this content. Okay, so that is one good example. Another one is Magical Lady Duchess right here on YouTube. She talks about witchcraft. She talks about hoodoo. She does spell videos. She also has a metaphysical shop online and one that you can actually visit in person. And she also sells spell services. So she's a person that I would go, again, you know what you're doing. I see you actively doing it. I trust that if I give you money and I explain my situation and I tell you what I want, you're going to actually do it instead of just saying, oh yeah, no, yeah, sure, I did your spell. Yeah, of course I did your spell. Or Lisa here on YouTube, Beyond Authentic. She sells tarot readings. Well, you know what? She also does a live stream every Sunday showing tarot readings. She knows about tarot. But if you just found a random Etsy shop that has like 3 reviews and they're selling $400 spells, don't fool yourself into thinking like, well, it's really expensive, it must really work. That person is collecting your money and then they're sitting back and doing nothing. I could do a whole video about avoiding scams, and honestly, I probably should. But again, this has to do with the fact that I do not have an issue with professional spellcasters as long as they are being upfront and honest, saying, hey, I can't guarantee results. And also, hey, here's the magic that I'm going to do for you. And here's what I recommend you do on the mundane level to help encourage this along. And it would be ideal if all of them send, a video showing themselves performing the spell. I think that would be the best way to go about it to prove, hey, I did the service. I performed the service. There you go. That would be great if they did, but I also understand if they're restricted with time and the ability to edit footage and things like that. But I know that personally, if I were paying somebody for a service, I would like to physically see them carry out the service, especially if I have to wait a long time for the results, or if the spell just wasn't meant to work or whatever reason it doesn't work. I'm not keeping up on the mundane level. If the results just never happen, I'm gonna sit here going, did they actually do it? So it would be great if they all did that, but I don't think that that's necessarily like a requirement. So again, there's different, kind of markers to show like what's a scam and what's not. In general, I don't have a problem with professional spellcasters, like I said, unless they are kind of going about it in a scammy way. Because there are plenty of people who do professional spellcasting and they'll do the spell, but they'll lie in their marketing. They'll say, 100% guaranteed. They'll say all kinds of stuff that I do not like. Finally, do I dislike Christians? No. For the most part, no. My take on it in general is you leave me alone, I'll leave you alone. Unless you want to ask questions just out of curiosity, just to try to better understand or better educate yourself. Not saying because you're trying to convert, just saying because you would like to learn something new. You would like to learn about a different faith. I'm more than happy to sit down and have that conversation, and I will ask you questions. I have a ton of questions about Christianity and the Bible and the belief set, because I myself am not a Christian. I don't go to church. I only actively went to church for a few months at one point in my life a long time ago. So yeah, I have questions. This kind of is the same thing as what I said about Wicca. In any group, whether you are talking about religious, whether you are talking about, political, etc. I can't go on to list everything. When you look at any group, there's always gonna be people there who are problematic. That's just a fact. So yeah, there are certain Christians, there are certain churches in general, specific Christian churches that I do not like, that I do have a problem with. But Christianity in general, personally, I don't get it. Like, it's just not my cup of tea. I don't believe in it. And there are a lot of things in Christianity that confuse me. But I'm sure there's a lot of things in paganism that confuse Christians. So, hey, who am I to judge? I think there's also a lot of cults that have sprung up out of Christianity that are very problematic, once again. But Christianity in general, no. And Christians in general, no. It annoys the ever-loving shit out of me when somebody says something offensive about my beliefs or my practices, which I've had happen like directly to my face, and they claim it's coming from a Christian concern. That bothers me, but it doesn't make me condemn an entire religion or an entire group of people because that one person is kind of an ignorant asshole. And just to be clear, in general, I don't find questions from Christians offensive at all. And even if they're kind of poorly phrased, I understand sometimes it's hard to dodge certain things, especially when you know nothing about a topic and you know nothing about a belief system. I get it. It can be hard, but if I feel that it's coming from a good place, that you just truly want to understand, it does not bother me. If I feel it's coming from a place of, oh, this is a loaded question, or, oh, you're trying to trap me with this question so you can be like, oh yeah, well, that's when it bothers me. That's when I'm like, just get out of here. I think a lot of the present day fear of paganism actually comes more from Hollywood, and more from a general misunderstanding and lack of knowledge, and from news media, for whatever reason, tying paganism into the satanic panic, which, do I need to even go into why that was just completely ignorant? Probably not. But I would blame those things more for present day fear and fear-mongering surrounding witchcraft and paganism more than I would the present-day church, as far as I know, and correct me if I'm wrong. And it also highly depends on the particular church you're in, the particular denomination that you're a part of, not you, but whoever. It heavily depends on those types of things, but a lot of Christianity, or Christian churches, Christian teachers, pastors, whatever, leaders, don't even really talk about paganism at all. There just was, a few decades ago, a whole lot of fear-mongering in the news. There's a whole lot of incorrect use of symbolism and iconography and terminology in horror films today. And it's also not just paganism that is getting condemned with that, but the occult in general. I mean, the use of Baphomet as a symbol for Satan in the newest Conjuring film. So no, I don't have an issue with Christians in general, just certain individuals. Thank you so much, everybody. If you would like some more opinion pieces or personal takes on things, you can check out this playlist right here.